Cool. So, nearing that this because this recording's nearing bedtime, we're going to talk about sleep tonight, and anything related to sleep. Where do I start? Well, I suppose a lot of people out there these days may not even know that they battle with sleep, or they may suffer from sleep apnea, which is a form of snoring or an obstruction of the airway. Very common these days, very prevalent. It can have a big effect on people's ability to even concentrate during the day. Can affect your emotions, mood, well-being, everything tiered down right to diet and lifestyle choices. And I suppose, why do I talk about that? Well, I suffer from a mild to severe form of sleep apnea, and I was diagnosed it's probably nearly 20 years ago, I think. So I spent 20 years of my life just waking up after a 10 or 12-hour sleep feeling like I hadn't slept. And I thought it was the norm. So I just battled through that. And then one day, one thing led to another. Saw a chest specialist, and then he referred me on to a sleep lab, a sleep study. So, and that was the next step into, diagnose what I had. And it, nowadays I sleep with a CPAP machine, which essentially just blows air down my throat to keep my airway unobstructed. And it's definitely improved the quality of my life. And I met a lot of people on the way too who just snore in general. It might not be sleep apnea, but there's different forms of it. Mine specifically was basically my brain telling my body to start breathing, so I'd actually stop breathing, and that's what they call that mild to severe. So that's a snapshot of a type of sleep disorder, and there's many out there too. Insomnia, the list goes on, but the effects are pretty deep and widening. And look, I'll throw it out to you guys too. I mean, what is your version of a good sleep? Like, what's it entail?
Thanks for talking about this, Luke. It was funny because while you were talking, my Ring popped up a message on my phone telling me it's time to stretch my legs a bit.
Yeah, right.
So I bought the Aura Ring at Luke's suggestion. Can everyone see the technology in there?
That's my one there. Sorry, better put that middle finger down.
Yeah, look, it's interesting because I log into the app every morning, and so it downloads my sleep data, and then it gives me a tip, tells me about how ready I am or the shape I'm in physically for the day and then to sleep that night. And it tells me how I slept the night before, and it tells me about ongoing trends and all sorts of stuff. So, I confirmed for myself that 5 to 6 hours is my norm. And I'm definitely paying more attention. The Ring warns me when it's time to start getting ready for bed, and it's telling me about my resting heart rate. So it's suggesting that maybe I had too much to eat or drink just before bed sometimes. It's doing all these things that I never thought about. So, I'm finding it's really eye-opening.
Yeah, nice. Well, it's good awareness too, especially with anything to track your sleep is of benefit. I suppose even me with Fitbits and also the Aura Ring that I've got, I met a couple of years back when the Aura Rings were sort of first coming out, and the amount of data, the in-depth data that they store and hold over time, which can really give you a deep snapshot into the trends of your sleeping habits. And as you said, with your heart rate, sometimes even just a slight rise in body temperature over 2 days can mean that you are getting sick. And I do feel sometimes I sort of your ring can determine how you feel for the day, but I'm like, well, how do I actually feel? You know, that's what I like to tune into as well, because they're not always accurate. I mean, our bodies are pretty unique things, and but anything to track you a certain amount of sleep. I mean, a normal adult between the ages of 30 to 50 should be getting at least minimum 6 hours a night sleep consistently. And anything over that is great. 8's optimal. As you said, Al, not many. You're a sort of a 6 hour. I'm on the 6 hour, but I really try to get to 7 or 8. That's my optimal, sleep. But with a busy lifestyle, it's quite hard. So there's a couple of things that we can do as well before we go to bed. Sleep habits are really important. So, and they're no-brainers, really. You've probably heard them 100 times, seen posts about them, blogs, etc. But for me, winding down before bed is important. I do a lot of stretching, and it's just basic stuff. I can lay in front of the TV, on the floor, on a yoga mat, and just do some basic stretching. And that tends to get me into that sort of mode where I slow down, stop thinking about the day. Good for the body. And also making sure there's no devices in the bedroom. Noise, big factor as well. If you're affected by noise, try and eliminate that with either sleep masks or some aids in your ears to block that out to reduce the disturbance. Heat is a big one too, body temperature. Now, when people go to bed, very important you try and stay away from heat bags unless you're carrying an injury, because they can dehydrate you overnight. Hot water bottles, they're not really ideal. They probably stay hotter than the wheat bags for longer. And hot, what do they call them? Hot blankets, the electric blankets. Put them in the bin because your body it's got a really great temperature. It regulates itself really well. So even if you go to bed, you either sleep hot, mid, or cold. I throw my arms out, and that's a good sort of barometer with your arms out. And this is sort of a bit of a known fact. Doesn't work for everybody, but for me, it works really well. It might seem cold at the time, but then my body adjusts really quickly to the temperature, and I can get to sleep within that sort of 5 to 6 minute range. Now, that's, from what I hear, that's a anomaly. Not a lot of people can get to sleep within 5 to 6 minutes. So I'm very lucky to have that gene. I've never struggled to get to sleep. However, I do wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I might struggle to get back to sleep. So that's quite a common theme too. So just making sure you got the right bedding. Don't skimp on pillows. Don't skimp on mattresses. Get the best. Find what works for you. These are all the little hacks. Really important. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, sorry, I had to run off just before because my phone was about to go flat, but it's plugged in now. And you asked the question about, for our what we think about it. It's really one of those things that so many people kind of push the thought of, sleep's the thing, that's essential aside. But all you got to do is look at a kid who hasn't had enough sleep, and just the mood that they can be in is horrendous. And it becomes really obvious. It's like, well, a kid kind of amplifies things, but that doesn't mean we're without it as an adult. We just have better ways to kind of manage it. But it doesn't mean that we're functioning at a high level.
Yeah.
And I know that you and I have spoken about this before, that there's coaches out there that when somebody comes to them and they say, hey, look, I need some coaching on this challenge in my life. The coach will go, well, how's your sleep? And they'll talk about the sleep patterns. And then they go, all right, we'll get that fixed first and then come back to me. So I'm not going to deal with someone who's operating at a lower level just because they haven't had enough sleep.
Yeah. That's great awareness too for a coach to point that out. There's not a lot. I mean, I shouldn't say there's not a lot out there that would, but generally the consensus is grind. You know what I mean? Work hard, push through it, minimal sleep, back to back, all nighters, all the rest of it. It's just not true. You know what I mean? If as you said, Ross, if we're if we're low, our cognitive function, is horrendous. And they've done studies on that.
Productivity.
Someone who has, say, 4 hours a night sleep, 3 nights consecutive, they're actually worse than a drunk driver on the road. Yeah. And there's a certain level, but it's well over 0.05. And that is in their ability to respond to something that happens quite quickly. So their reaction time is low. Their response time is low. And it's disappointing that we live in a culture that predominantly promotes grinding, working through, and not sleeping. Everyone at the real high level, like the high elite athletes, guys like LeBron James and things like that, sleep is the hack. Yeah, that's their go-to. You want recovery, for everything. It just covers off on everything. They know where it's at because it's very important for them. They're getting like the 0.111%ers out of everything. And they, these guys go to sleep labs. They maximise all that they can to recover physically and mentally. Yeah, very important.
Yeah, but it's
I think. No, sorry, Ross, you go.
No, we haven't. I haven't heard from you yet, so I'd love to hear what you've got to say.
Hey, how you going?
You're not actually showing on my screen, so please
okay.
go ahead.
I chimed in late. I'm driving home, but I think, I don't know if you mentioned it, Luke, or if I'm making this up, but I think there was even a study where they compared people that hadn't slept to people that were drunk or had consumed alcohol, and the people that consumed alcohol were performing better than the sleep-deprived people.
Yeah. There's been a few studies like that. Yeah.
I perform better when I'm drunk.
Yeah, we
just think you do.
we all certainly dance better when we're drunk, don't we?
Yeah.
But for me, sleep deprivation was a killer when especially when my firstborn was born. It just, I was just beside myself for months. I couldn't even function properly, and all I ever thought about was how much sleep I'd gotten, and I got what I called sleep anxiety about it because I was trying to count the minutes and the hours that I'd gotten sleep or lack of sleep, and I could go 5 days and be counting just on two hands how much hours sleep I'd have, and I could never go to sleep during the day or anything like that, no matter how tired I was. So now I still have what I call a little bit of sleep anxiety. I can't go to sleep without a device. I know it's bad, but for me, it's my thing that I need to shut down and just play a little game on my phone or something to be able to go to sleep. Otherwise, my mind doesn't know how to shut off, and I'll lay there awake for hours. But then, having said that, once I am asleep, I can get, I'll have 8 hours every night. That's just my thing. I have to get 8 hours. So, it's so important.
It's a really important thing, I think, to remember. In today's society, a lot of women feel like they need to be able to do everything, and even if the man's off at work, and then he comes home and he's been at work all day, and if you're breastfeeding and you're up, as a standard, it would be 1 out of 3 hours the baby needs feeding, and there's an hour taking care of it, and you've got an hour left. And that's that'd be standard. People have it much worse than that, but that would be standard. And to think that out of every 3 hours, you get 1 hour of sleep and then you're woken up again because the baby needs to be fed again, that's tough. And you're on your own for the whole day. And then, your husband comes home or partner, and, he's been at work all day, he's tired, he wants to sleep. So then the two of you having to juggle that and look after that child, that's a really tough time. So the more help you can get at that point, the better, because that sleep is so critical. And they used to use sleep deprivation as a torture. That was one of the things they used to do. I believe it's actually been banned as a torture, just due to how horrendous the effects are of it. It's a hideous thing, and in today's society we don't really think of it or talk about it and go, hey, your sleep's really important, what are you doing about it? It's one of those things that it's just the conversation is lacking, so I'm really glad we're having it today.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And I think, Jerry, that you brought to light, which is really a fact that's probably not well known, is that mothers, especially in the first year or two of childbirth, or rearing children, and families, really go through the ringer. Like, it's amazing that we all survived, right? To be honest. So it shows, the importance of sleep and the effects that it can have. And in saying that, look, any sleep is going to be beneficial, and I suppose just to get a decent quality of sleep too. So even if it's 2 to 3 hours in a day, it's a little patch that you can go into a quiet room, have a good sleep, or even just any sleep. So it's about the quality as well. So, someone can have an 8-hour sleep, and as Al was saying with the ring, you might have thought, well, look, I've been in bed 8-9 hours, but in actual fact, you've woken up 10 times throughout the night. You've not sort of gone through the deep sleep and the REM and NREM stages of sleep, which all have their different benefits. And if we're not actually reaching certain stages or staying in them long enough throughout the night, it may have an effect both physically and cognitively, that we may not recover as fast. Tests and things like that, it's having a good sleep the night before, but also in your study, having a really good sleep the night before the test is really important to outcomes as well. So definitely good for this.
And what about the before midnight time? I know I've noticed it has a difference to the quality of my sleep. Is there studies out there or something that says, hey, the time before midnight is really important?
Yeah, I think just keeping it regular. So it's called our circadian rhythms, yeah? Trying to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. And it is hard, right? Like, I'm kind of one that might lay in for maybe an hour or two longer on the weekend, but normally I'm up at anything between 5 and 6:30 a.m. But I do try to go to bed, maybe 10, at the latest. Although last Friday night, I think it was about 3 a.m. So that put a spanner in the works, and I thought, well, I've had 4 hours sleep. I don't think I had about 6 minutes deep sleep. I felt like shit. For 2 days. So you can see that, and I'm very conscious of it too. So, yes, Ross, people are very different. Some go to bed at 12 and they'll wake up at 8 and they'll be fine. Some, might be later. I do believe there's a bit of a tipping point where if it goes any later and you have to wake up at the same time in the morning, you're going to struggle, and you start to get out of that circadian rhythm. Kids get taken to sleep school earlier on, especially when they're out of sync. And generally, they really say that you just need to stay up and almost skip a day. So you could stay up for 18 hours just to reset the clock. If you can get back into some sort of routine after that, 6 to 8 hours, and stick to it, that's all it'll take. It's not the end of the world. People take a lot of sleeping tablets, over-the-counter prescriptions. I tend to stay away from. That stuff long-term can have detrimental effects and actually compound your sleeping problems. And I'll put it out there that if you're going to take long-term, sleep tablets, you're better off smoking weed. You would be better off. It'd calm you down, bring down your heart rate, you chill out, you'd have a laugh, you get the munchies, you crash out, and you feel good. Potentially.
Excuse me, sir.
Allegedly.
I got a tip. I got a tip for kava.
Okay, yeah, nice. Yep.
So many would be aware of the Fijian root-based drink.
Yeah.
So over here, you can actually get it in a capsule form.
Okay.
So it's a measured dose. It's in a capsule. Take one of those an hour before bed.
Yep.
And that acts as a more natural sedative, apparently. So
yeah,
there's various teas you can get as well.
Yeah, there's lots of good teas. I get one from California. It's like a poppy seed tea. It's like a caramel infused. It's really nice. It's got some really good sort of knock you out properties. Not addictive. It's organic. So I tend to have one of those. Melatonin's a good one too. And I've spoken about the benefits of that too when you travel. And if you are struggling with sleep, there's some good quality melatonin you can get from overseas. The stuff they sell in Australia is just garbage, low level. Like, it's minimal effective dose. You'd need to be having 10 times the amount than you would from a good brand bought overseas. But I have that. My kids have that from time to time as well. Very important that they get their sleep. And it has no real long-term effects. Some people even say it's a placebo. It has no effect. So there's really no harm in it if it's working for you. But some of the prescription tablets, they're no good for you long-term. So, and one thing I will say too is what you do during the day really has an effect on how you sleep at night. There's a chemical in the body that's built up, throughout the day. That builds up your melatonin that allows you to actually get to sleep and drop off and stay asleep. So if you're not getting enough vitamin D, so even just 10 to 15 minutes in the sun, you need to get that, some fresh air. Exercise, very important. Movement. So I try at least, once a day to get sort of physical, get a bit of sun. And that all inhibits, as it sort of compounds over throughout the day, the chemical sort of builds. And naturally, that's how your body will get to sleep, at say 10, 11, 12 o'clock. So very important if you're struggling with sleep to get moving, do things, get vitamin D, and stay hydrated. That's one of my big things as well. I think that has a big effect on sleep. When you're dehydrated, it can really suck the life out of you. And I put a real conscious effort every morning when I wake up. I have a natural hydration solution with some calcium, magnesium, and I have that at night too. So my levels of magnesium in my body, so I'm relaxed, my muscles are working and functioning well. This is the biggest muscle in the body, and it's hydrated. So even if it's lemon in water, you just don't get up and have your coffee straight away. Just try and have, just hydrate yourself. Yeah.
Do you, sorry, Luke, do you have the magnesium as a capsule, or is it like magnesium bath or something like that?
It's in a powdered form.
Okay.
Yeah. I tend to think anything with pills has fillers in it. This is just me personally. So there's a lot of stuff that you don't necessarily need to process. Not that great for the body. But yeah, everything in powder form for me mixes in really well. I think it's called Natural Calm, and that comes from overseas as well. It's made by a doctor over there. Different versions of it, really good. But I felt magnesium calms the mind as well. So it really does. They call it the great relaxer. That's the tagline on it. And I thought, okay, so if you have a good teaspoon of that once or twice a day with the hydration powder, I never feel dehydrated, but when I do, I can really sense it. Like I start to feel a bit off, and I used to push through like that, and I know a lot of people that do. I know people that don't drink water. How do you not drink water? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, but
it's all right. We drink Coke.
That's Coke's not
It's
water.
a liquid.
But isn't it amazing what the human body will take? It'll just keep taking it. You can just give it hell for leather. Until a point where it affects you so much that illness just starts in the body. It can start into cancer. There's many different forms of illness that will just present in your body because you've punished it so much. So,
I find it's interesting if you've had a stretch where you haven't slept, let's say a couple of weeks where you're just doing, maybe 5 hours a night because whatever work is there to be done. And then you have that sleep at the end of that period. Even if you sleep 12 hours, you're still tired. It's like your body's going, oh my God, it just, what have you done to me? It's like this. I don't know if you've had that experience.
Yeah, it needs that rest. Like, I do. I really listen to my body. So I'm fortunate enough that I don't have to wake up to an alarm every morning.
Yeah.
I set one, but if I wake up earlier or later, like it's what it is. I just kind of listen to my body. If I've got appointments that I need to be somewhere on time, then the alarm's it. But otherwise, I sort of naturally try and give the body what it needs. If that answers your question, if it's a bit of a lay in for an extra couple of hours, and by all means, sleeping during the day. If you're absolutely capped out and maxed out, just try and keep it to a minimum of sort of an hour during the day. Optimal is 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And these are just tests. These are things, literature that I've read and studies that, see the benefits of a 20 or 30-minute power nap. Headphones on. I've got some binaural beats, they call it. So different frequencies of meditation. I can just put those on, laying on the couch in my office, 15, 20 minutes of that. And that's really good. Especially if you haven't been sleeping well. So little things like that are gonna help you too. So get it where you can.
That power nap during the day is good. You just got to be careful not to sleep for too long, because if you get into that too deep level and you get woken up, it's like being hit with a truck. So watch that with your power nap. If you find you're waking up from a power nap and you're feeling really rough afterwards, you've slept for too long.
Yeah. Yep. And the standard things like alcohol, people say it makes you feel better. Yeah, well, it does make you feel better, that's for sure. But it doesn't do anything for your sleep. So it'll help you go to sleep. Yeah. You could drink a bottle and you'll surely go to sleep. But it really takes its toll on the levels of deep sleep that you achieve, and you really just don't get into those levels. So if you are struggling with sleep, and predominantly this talk is to just bring some awareness around it. And I suppose the key things for me is being regular, and if you are struggling with sleep, just eliminate alcohol for a bit. Just give it a try. You know what I mean? Go for a little bit of a walk, and it's all those little 1%ers. Yeah, there's no magic cure. There's no magic pill. Your doctor probably knows very little about sleep. I know about 5 doctors that I've met my entire life that are actually pretty switched on, but they've written books about sleep. Yeah, so we actually get on really well because I enjoy it. Not many people do, to talk about it. So very important to get good advice, and there is a few books out there. And authors, Michael Walker, if you Google him, he's an author. He's a sleep doctor from the UK. He's a gun ahead of his time. Really, really good book, Why We Sleep. Not a big book, but and it talks about everything in regards to sleep, the hacks, how you can get ahead, all the little bits and pieces. So probably one of the best sleep books I've ever read. So, but bar being like a medical, thesaurus that I understand nothing about.
So what was that book again?
Why We Sleep.
Why We Sleep.
Yeah, by
cool. Awesome.
Matt Walker it is. Yeah, Matt Walker.
Matt Walker. Great, thank you. And your recommendations there as well. So stay hydrated, get sunlight, exercise, and look for your 8 hours.
Yeah, look for your 8 hours. But as Jerry said, I think it's important that we don't over-analyse it. And I think that's probably, be aware of that. Don't worry too much about our Fitbits. Worry about how much how we feel.
How you feel.
It's all about consistency with sleep. And it goes in ebbs and flows. I'm going through a period now this month where I haven't had as much sleep as I'd like, but I don't put too much on it. I'm like, I know I can get back into the swing of it soon enough. And I'm aware of it. It hasn't got away from me. I'll get back on track. But look, we lead up to the end of the year too, Ross and Al and Jerry and Harsha. And there's that big rush and there's so much to do. And, we'll rest and we'll sleep when it's the 25th of December, which is probably at a time when we should be spending it with our families, not on our hands and knees worrying about our businesses and getting those projects out the door. So,
Well, one of the 20th century's greatest philosophers, Guy by the name of John Bon Jovi. He is quoted as saying, "I'm going to live while I'm alive, and I'll sleep when I'm dead."
Yeah, but you can be dead and alive. Do you know what I mean? So you can be living, but gee, fuck, you're not living very well. So, but yeah,
You don't
well said.
recommend his sage advice.
I bet you he sleeps 12 hours a night like a log.
Well, he's a beautiful man, so he must have a lot of beauty sleep.
I think so, mate. You're onto something. Good men think alike, Al.
Luke, I always question these, successful business people that they say, oh, he only has 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night. And that I've heard stats on that all these successful people, they're all these people that have very, very little sleep. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's scientifically it's proven that there's about 1% of the population that can survive and function off 4 hours a night sleep. But they actually
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, and they've got links to studies that they've done that people who have consistently 4 hours a night sleep, and there's links to early onset of dementia and Parkinson's disease. Yeah, a good example of that. Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, notorious minimum 4 hour night sleepers, both early onset dementia and I believe Parkinson's. So. And they're really, diving into that study now to see, how it is correlated, because we live in a society that's so now and, sleep as little as you can. Sleep, when you're dead.
So based on what you just said then, are we finished? I'm off to bed.
Yeah, I just feel like we should just go to bed. So
It's bedtime now, yeah.
It is, yeah. But yeah, no. Look, I hope this has been helpful, and I like to spread the word because I know how important it is with sleep, especially with kids. That's a real. Kids deserve every chance in life, and I think we need to be providing that. Be it comfortable beds and good routines, and it's not always apples and pears.
That's where we set our routines.
Yeah. It's very hard. It's very hard. I'm the same. I have 3 kids. I'm very lucky that they all sleep pretty well, although they do have a predisposition. Actually, one of my oldest girls, she's a sleep study tonight with her mum. So that's interesting too, yeah. She's only 11 and she's been diagnosed, bit of a predisposition to a sleep disorder. Because we're onto it so early, we can sort of diagnose it and work with it. So she's there tonight, very brave, because they put a lot of stuff on you and they monitor you. I mean, you've got like a thick core of wires and stuff's pinned to your head and all over your body. And so it's important that kids get the education from their parents and have a good start to their day every day. Yeah.
I think you've just flagged a significant part of where we all maybe go a bit wrong. I don't know about you guys. I know when I was growing up, I really didn't question my parents and their wisdom, and I just thought everything they did was the way it's done. And now, as a maturing adult, I realise I haven't got an effing clue, and they probably didn't either. And so that, no one, I don't think even now at school, there's much talk about sleep. The real battle is to manage technology use, to manage online bullying and other issues. There's a whole lot of stuff that is highlighted, but I don't think sleep is still.
No, certainly not.
No, it's not. And even with little athletes as well. My son, he's 13, and he's the budding AFL superstar. And I say to him, the biggest hack you're going to learn throughout your youth, leading to adulthood, is sleep. Yeah, and that's going to be the big differentiator, man, with recovery, learning, treating your body right. And I think he's starting to understand, because he meets, some players and they're, where you going home to bed. Okay, cool. So it really means, it doesn't mean much from dad, but if it comes from an AFL player, got to be good. So maybe that you're right, Al. Maybe that's that stereotype we need to change. You need to have people that are in that position to come and preach the benefits of sleep.
Yep.
Well, it's like anything practical, if you like. Mentoring is a really important part of the process. So I think I was fairly typical growing up. So definitely loved my sleep, especially as a teenager. But progressively got, to bed later and later. So weekends were big sleep-ins, that sort of thing. While I had technology in the 80s, nothing like what there is now. And I'm finding, like, I've got a 19-year-old boy, and I think gender has a lot to do with it at the moment. So 9-year-old boy, he's not that connected to his technology. He enjoyed his gaming, but is backing off from that a little. 16-year-old daughter, though, it's just, things like Snapchat could just consume every minute of every day, given a chance.
Yeah. I can't switch off, man. It's like, shit, I'm fairly conscious, and I struggle to switch off sometimes. I'm just thinking, what would it be like for a kid, that really doesn't have that awareness sometimes, and we do expect them to, to improve and to do better at school and manage their emotions and all the rest of it. But if they're not even getting enough sleep to, help them grow, and as I say, like teenagers are always lazy, they're always in bed, and I'm like, let them stay in bed. As long as they're not staying up till 3 a.m. and sleeping all day. But a lazy teenager goes to bed at 11 or 12 and then sleeps till 11 or 12. That's good news, man. Yeah, like let it happen, because they're in that stage of their life where they're growing. Very important. The younger you are, the more sleep you get. As we naturally get older, we do have less sleep. That's just how we age. But I don't know how we can just disconnect sometimes. I think you're right. It's a massive shift, and it's a big problem. Yeah, like we just don't understand it. You get in that scroll hole, as they call it, and you can be on something for hours. And you think, "Fuck, what am I doing? Like what?" And that can become a habit. I
think it's really important that I know that some high schools have already sort of changed their curriculum a little bit, but they know that teenagers actually can't absorb things like maths and science in the morning. They're much better off doing sport and softer subjects and things like that in the morning. And some schools have adopted this. I know that they obviously just can't do it everywhere because of timetabling situations, but some forward-thinking schools should be thinking about this and looking at the studies of when teenagers in particular perform better, and maybe they shouldn't be starting school until 11 o'clock or something like that. There's been plenty of teenagers, like my nephew goes to a private school. Half the time he's at school by 7 o'clock every morning, because they'll have music first, and then school starts at 8:15 and they're done by before 3 o'clock. But maybe that's the wrong way about it. They actually need to be starting later and ending later to get the peak performance out of the kids. So I think there needs to be a bit more forward movement in schools thinking about the way that teenagers need their sleep, and when their brains are performing at the best. And I think they could be doing a lot more work for that. I think if they did a study, they'd probably find that the Year 12s that year smashed it.
That's interesting. That could be an individualist thing as well. I know that my most productive time is the first point in the morning for me. That's when I'm most productive. But I mean first thing in the morning as well. So, I can skip my breakfast to start with and get on with work, and then eat my breakfast a little bit later even, because that first time in the morning is when I'm most productive. As the day goes on, I become more tired, I become less productive. But You know, I also understand that is unique to individuals, and maybe for teenagers, there's other stuff going on. I don't specifically remember. You know, it was a few years ago now.
Yeah, they're really good points. Genetically, we have a marker in our DNA that you'll either be an early riser or a late riser. So that, you're right. And to understand that, because I think, you know, the schools should, and even workplaces, we've discovered that too, with staff, that some really perform better later in the day, and we've actually been considering allowing them to start a couple of hours, you know, after everybody. Obviously, it's got to work for the company, and it's also got to work for the person. But if someone's habitually late, you know, and they're not performing, and we're not talking by a lot, so what? You know, why? Like, I can see this guy obviously needs to sleep. It'd just benefit both. And I believe, back to your starting school late, I think they've done studies in Sweden, I believe, where they start school after 9 or 10 o'clock. And I think they actually minimise the amount of time at school as well. So there's studies that have been done if you Google it, and the benefits were fantastic. Yeah, they got just a lot more done. I mean, you can't ask a kid to get up at 7 a.m, just straight into it. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? Like, and they go to, like, some go to what, like 5, 6 o'clock, come home, do homework. Like, Are they kids or you know? I get confused sometimes, you know.
Yeah, I think we put too much on our kids these days with their extracurricular activities, and I think they're under a great amount of stress. So no wonder they're all sitting on Snapchat 24/7 with all their spare time.
I think it also becomes a form of escape as well from that space of having to do. You know, you can get on a game and spend a couple of hours, and you've escaped from reality. So that's what I'm finding.
Wow,
10-year-old.
Yeah, well, really good insights from like, really makes sense. Yeah, it's
So Luke, I reckon we're getting close to time here. So how do you want to wrap this up? For those that are watching, what's next? What can you offer, or what you know, where can you direct them?
Sleep. Yeah, look, I think my skill set, I love dealing with teams, like people that, you know, want to, especially in the corporate space, that want to discover the basic fundamentals of, you know, sleep, hydration, and even nutrition on a basic form that will, you know, not just marginally improve their lives, but significantly. It's just around awareness and education, and sometimes we just don't know how we are. So, you know, next steps is if someone wants to get in contact with me, I'm happy to come in, you know, talk one-on-one or as a team, as a consultant, pass on the knowledge that I have, and even kids as well. There's a group of kids out there that need a bit of education. You know, that'd be pro bono. Be looking, you know, if that's what it is, I'd be happy to help out any organisation that needs it in that respect. But definitely get in touch with us, reach out. Feedback, comments, you know, are all very welcome.
And for anyone that looks at this community as a place to become a regular member, are you able to offer ongoing education and support?
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Yeah, well said, Al. So I completely missed the ball there, but and that's predominantly my role, is to help in that space. So anyone that comes on board struggling with the sleep, break it down, you know, have a chat. That's what it's about. I'm here to help, definitely.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
So Al, if anyone wants to join the group, just go to bit.ly/all-for-one-community, and that's number 4, bit.ly all-for-one-community /all-for-one-community, and they can join our Facebook group.